Hi, welcome to the Lib Dem podcast. This is part 2 of our general election kind of debrief, where this time we're going to be talking about what happens next. And in this episode, Richard, that's what we're going to try and dissect. Exactly where we go, what happens to Labour and the Tories as best as we can, or, you know, we're only a few days after the election, so all sorts of craziness might happen. If you want to follow Richard, please do on Twitter at Councillor Kemp. You can follow myself at John Potter LD, and you can follow all things to do with the Lib Dem Pod at Lib Dem Pod. Please subscribe to us, then you'll get these episodes as soon as they come out. Please like and share all the joy of Lib Demness to all your friends and family. Right, what happens next? Should we go with, let's do it in reverse order. Let's start with Labour. So, because Labour is all over the news at the moment. Just today, we've started to get the first of the leadership hopefuls declare. So by the time this goes out, probably all of them will have. But we know Thornbury's in. We probably know Keir Starmer's going to be there, Lisa Nandy, Rebecca Long-Daly, and probably Jess Phillips, I would say, are probably the 5 we are looking at the moment. Where does Labour go from here?
God help them, I would have thought, with that lot. I think the problem is that you and I might have a preference for one or more of those kinds. There's only one that I think would actually appeal to the British public, but I'm not going to say who it is, just in case the Labour Party come to their senses and choose that they want to have one. But what we do know is that none of those candidates appeal to much more than half the Labour Party. And as we've discussed before, you and I disagreed on who our leader should be. And obviously that's one of the things we perhaps discuss later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we had no problem with the one that did get elected. Yeah. We're liberals, we work within a band of principle and a family spirit, which enables us to move leaders in an appropriate way and not feel aggrieved by it. So I think the next 4 months, I think they've said it's mid-March that they actually are going to be fairly bloody for the Labour Party, but probably even bloodier afterwards.
Yeah, I see. Part of me thinks it was such a jolt having the worst election since 1935. Like I said, radar and the biro pen weren't invented by the time they had an election. I looked that up. I thought it was quite good. So will they have jolted out the Corbyn? Has Corbynism going to lose its place in the Labour Party? And if I listened to Labour councillors in Preston, I listened to 2 of which having differing arguments about where they should go from what, and one was just completely in denial about Corbynism had anything to do with any of the problems they had in this election.
Yeah, it was us, wasn't it?
Usually, it's always usually the Lib Dem fault. Yeah. But the Corbyn side of the party has such control that I expect Rebecca, I keep on calling her wrong Daily.
You mean private idea.
Yeah, Long Bailey. She's just a continuation of what they've already had. But so how do they expect it to change? Because she's probably going to be one of the top 2. Because Angela Rayner has said that she would want to be her deputy, along with Richard Bergen has put forward to be deputy.
I think people became solicitors is beyond me.
Yeah,
I probably only did conveyancing.
Although conveyancing lawyers who listen to our podcast, who are wonderful people.
How many have we got in our quite a few. I wouldn't buy a house without a conveyancing lawyer.
So, I mean, obviously the more moderates is Keir Starmer. You're looking at, but he has a problem that he was very Remain-leaning, and part of if the Labour Party belief is that it was all about Brexit that lost them, which it wasn't, but if they believe that, like the Len McCluskey line at the moment saying it's because we went for a people's vote instead, then Keir Starmer's dead in the water.
Yeah.
You look, for me personally, if I was a Tory, the people I'd worry about was Jess Phillips or David Lammy. I think either of those 2 would present real troubles for an Etonian Tory Prime Minister to go up against. But I don't think they'll pick either.
Now, what about Lisa Nandy? Was she on the list before?
Lisa Nandy's had
her grandfather was a Lib Dem or a Liberal peer.
Okay. Well, she was
a Remainer.
She's a Remainer, but she was also one that I don't know if she was about respecting the vote kind of Labour after the referendum, but she certainly had a lot of media attention, since the election about this, Wigan, small towns being left behind. We weren't listening to our key base. Okay. Will she do enough?
No, I don't think she is a runner, but she's probably one of the most competent people.
Yeah.
But that, I would guess, will rule her out.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's quite clear that those who now control the party, and in Liverpool they control all 5 constituencies, actually believe that they won the argument, that the manifesto needs to be enacted. How they're going to enact it in opposition is beyond me. That Corbyn will be like Bonnie Prince Charlie over the sea, and they'll want to appoint someone as like Jeremy Corbyn as possible.
Which would be the Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Yeah, and that will mean that 20% of the Labour Party will leave or just become totally disengaged.
Now, do we think... So we had a discussion in the last podcast where I was saying, how do Lib Dems overcome a completely unelectable Labour leader because it squeezes the Tories we want to vote for us, or the moderate Tories want to vote for us. If we have a Rebecca Long-Bailey, is that a good thing for the Lib Dems? Because either the next election is a complete disaster for Labour and for us, and Tories get another 5 years, or the Labour Party completely disintegrates, and at which point Lib Dems hopefully then take on that mantle.
Swoop up some, or sweep up some.
But they are two absolute polar forks in the road, if you know. I don't know.
Except that there's 3 forks now, isn't there? Because the third fork is that there is no way that there's going to be a Labour government after the next general election.
I mean,
and I think everyone knows that.
Yeah, I think you look at the historical base of it. You look at 1983. It took them 14 years to get back into it. And then even if you think of the Tories in 1997, it took them then to 2015 before they then got another majority.
Yeah.
And none of them were as bad as what's happened to the Labour Party now.
Absolutely. So I think that will have taken a lot of the fear factor out. So you can take the fear factor out because the Labour Party aren't a threat because they're being sensible, or you can take the fear factor out because the Labour Party aren't a threat because they ain't going to be elected. Yeah. So I think we're in the latter of those.
That would help the Lib Dems, particularly in Tory-facing seats, the fact that Labour aren't electable.
So we're not going to have a Labour government. You know that. I know that. So who's going to hold the
Vote
Tories
for your
to the account?
Lib Dem candidate,
but also the ones. No, I take it further than that. Yes, that's the starting point. But I also say, you know as well as we do, the things that have gone wrong, and I'm sure things will go wrong. Who's going to hold that government to account more? Every Liberal Democrat MP will be, this doesn't sound exciting, but staffing the select committees, raising the questions in the House, challenging the policies. And so make sure there's a good number of us there, because everyone will make your Tory government actually a better one, because we'll rein it in. Yeah,
like I said, no one thinks Labour's going to win the next election. The
cult do.
Yeah, but it's just, and I just don't see. And there's a lot of talk about lending of votes. And Boris Johnson even said we were lent these votes. Now the psychology of that isn't that simple. See, you'd normally think that, they've lent us the votes, and then they come across people, voters, gamblers, stockbrokers, whatever, don't like admitting mistakes. And actually the psychology within human beings is that you tend to double down on a mistake rather than reverse straight away. So the idea that suddenly all these areas in the North and Midlands that the Tories took from Labour are suddenly going to switch back, I think doesn't bear scrutiny.
No, because it doesn't recognise why they moved in the first place.
That's right.
So just as we're saying, for Lib Dems, no easy answers. It's going to be slog, it's going to be hard work, though we think that's enjoyable because of our different view on politics. So thank you to all the people he's just offended. I only offended conveyancing solicitors because he's just offended the whole bloody party. So we see that as a task around a set of principles about a way of life, about what we want to see for our communities and our cities and our counties or our countries. Labour don't see it that way.
And what's interesting we're moving slightly onto the Tories now, and we mentioned again about Tories have to own everything that comes now. Whatever happens with Brexit, that is on them,
Yeah.
and whether that flank of their and whether that flank, particularly in the south, is then vulnerable to the Lib Dems. You can imagine if they suddenly allow fishing, European vessels to be in UK fishing waters, which will probably happen as part of any trade deal. All those areas in the south that they promised, we'll take back control.
Brixham.
We will have. I'm thinking about Cornwall and places like that where they made all sorts of these promises. Suddenly, will be shown up to be absolutely worthless.
Well, they're all undeliverable.
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't make a promise that you could see an easy way out of, except we will leave. I mean, you can leave.
Yeah.
You could leave on the 31st of January.
Yeah.
But what with and how and why?
What
and
effect
what's the
does it
effects
have?
of that?
Yeah.
So when you look at every area that they seem to be making promises in, and there were some clear numbers. For example, if you look at social care, they said two things. We'll put an extra 5 billion in, but that's only 1 billion a year, so that's not a lot of money.
No,
it sounds a lot.
Yeah.
But also they said we now need an all-party review of social care.
That's because they know it's going to be an awful topic to have to deal with, and they want political cover.
Yeah.
But
see, I wouldn't give the Tories political cover, although I would. I think it's absolutely our duty, particularly those of us who are elected, to engage in the debate about social care and in fact a range of issues, particularly as councillors, because we actually have a lot more influence now, let's face it, than our 11 members of Parliament and our whatever it is 100 Lords. In our council chambers we can get resolutions through, we can amend the policies of Labour and Tory controlling councils, so we've got to be concentrating in that context on what's deliverable, but we also need to choose our ground carefully for what we oppose.
And another thing, I did a little article says more. I did a little post on one of the closed Facebook groups about the revoke policy, and how we've talked about it, whether it was a mistake or not, and the influence that had on the election. But one thing I will say to Lib Dems out there is that over time, having had that policy, if Brexit goes completely belly up and terrible, a very clear thing said, well, we were the buggers trying to stop it.
We told you so.
Yeah. Well, you never say we told you so, because it makes you...
I do.
But because again, it's not about the voters getting it wrong, it's about the voters being lied to.
Absolutely.
And so we can say, in a very clear way, we want you to stop it. We were the only party wanting to stop it, along with 6 million people who signed that petition.
Yeah, but we could have said that anyway, because we could have said people's vote, but you know how we're going to vote in a subsequent referendum.
But that's a bit more nuanced. I think when you're talking about elections gone past, having clear messaging, actually saying, and look at the Iraq War. Straight after it, the grief Charles Kennedy got for being a traitor and all the rest of it, not supporting our soldiers. After the fact, people went, he was right.
Yeah.
Vince Cable, the same with the crash. Vince Cable saying, there's a housing bubble, it will pop.
Yeah.
Again,
Dr. Death he was called.
Yeah. Why are you doing down our economy, Vince? Actually, after the fact, was proven to be right.
Yeah. So we're the only party, well, the Greens in a slightly different way, are the only ones who can actually say, we told you so.
But Green, amazing enough, the Green candidate I was up against, a really nice lady called Ruth, said she thought our policy was dangerous on revoke. I'd be really interested to know. And I didn't always have. I said, I wonder how many Green members and supporters signed that 6 million petition, and I'll bet there was a lot of them.
Absolutely.
So that's one way. But I mean, the Tories are just going. I mean, it's going to be not as interesting in Parliament because they've got such a whopping majority. Things are going to proceed through, but there'll be things they can't control. The EU is not going to give them a sweetheart deal. They still haven't figured out what to do about Northern Ireland, and there's a whole load of mess coming from Scotland.
Yeah.
What do they do about all those things? Yeah. It's all up in the air.
And as you rightly said, with a majority like that, they can't blame it on austerity, the Lib Dems, Jeremy Corbyn buggering around in Parliament. All that's gone.
Yeah.
There's only one set of decision makers at a national level. It's the Tories. We know there's lots of grief coming, giving them the benefit of the doubt in some areas. There is more grief coming than good news.
Yeah.
Who created that? The Tories did, and that's why if I was facing the Tories now, I'd be saying, I reckon I'm going to take this council in 2 or 3 years'
absolutely.
time. And that's your building block to pull up. And that's where you show, basically, that actually our policies do work. We're reasonable people, we're thoughtful people, and we can deliver.
So before we go on to Lib Dems from here and what we need to do, I mentioned Scotland there, and what happens in Scotland, because I want to just also, I mean, the SNP I think get a bit of an easy ride from kind of centrists and left of centres, because they don't actually, they've been pretty terrible in Scotland with some of the stuff they've had powers devolved to, but they get kind of an easy ride because we don't hear about it in England, and you know, people are like fancy London cafes saying, oh, aren't the SNP wonderful, I wish we had them down here. Actually, they're not that great.
Look at education standards.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that has come up is they're saying this is an absolute mandate for independence, when actually, if you tot it up, there were more votes for unionist parties than combined than actually the SNP and Greens. Because the Greens in Scotland are different from the Greens in England and Wales. They believe in independence as well.
Yeah.
But so they're actually a popular vote. They lost it again.
Yeah. If I was to look at what the United Kingdom would look like in 10 years' time, I'm more thoughtful that it would be the United Kingdom of Great Britain.
Yeah, because Northern Ireland. I think you can hear it coming. The calls for republicanism growing within Northern Ireland.
And let's not forget, 12 Liberals were elected. Well done, Stephen Farry.
Yeah, absolutely.
In
The Alliance.
I thought it would be Naomi Long again, but the Alliance did it incredibly well.
Yeah, they did.
There are differences between the Lib Dems and the Alliance Party, but fairly minor ones. I happen to be a member of both, so well done, Stephen Farry.
And it was interesting. We talked about, and when we suffered at the hands of coalition, as all junior partners do, look what happened to the DUP.
Yeah.
To lose the seats they did, including Nigel Dodds as well.
Yeah, did he lose that to us? I got a bit confused.
No, he lost it to Sinn Féin.
Oh, right.
Oh, no.
Anyway, he lost.
He lost it. Because the SDP came back, not SDP.
SDLP.
SDLP, thank you.
Yeah.
Came back and took seat as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that was his. But anyway, they had an awful night. But that, you know, they propped up the Tories.
Yeah, for the most mercenary and unprincipled reasons.
Yeah, that's right.
And then realised they'd been shafted.
Yeah. Right.
I feel very sorry for them.
No, yes. Eventually, some of their policies might just get into the 20th century, let alone the 21st. So, but let's go on to the Lib Dems. What we can do, because a lot of the stuff we've just talked about there is outside of our control. We can capitalise on it. We can use it to benefit ourselves. But actually, if the Labour Party choose a bonkers leader, that's on them. If the Tories go for hard Brexit, that's on them. The question is, what do Lib Dems do right now to help grow?
Well, I've got a load of leaflets to deliver.
Okay, well,
they're in my front room. When are you going?
Yeah, that's right.
He's got to go shopping.
Is that the wife? Is that the wife?
But I'm being serious when I say that. We were actually out delivering on the 14th of December our Christmas cards, and we're having a couple of meetings. I'm afraid I'm a bit dictatorial, so I invented a policy about 10:05 on the 12th of December. But I do know the party very well here. And we're having a couple of meetings to look at two things: what's good for the party and what's good for our city.
Yeah.
Now that discussion would be very different if I was facing Tories. It might be the same discussion that you're going to have, because as Liberal Democrats we do have to consider the serious problems of our areas. We represent some of the poorest parts of the country, although I represent a wealthy ward in Liverpool. I'm conscious of the huge health inequalities here, and so on certain levels the Liberal Democrats in Liverpool, and I think we should do this nationally, is commit to being bloody good councillors, not only at a ward level, but actually saying they can't come up with agendas. We can. What is the way that we would take Liverpool, Preston, wherever it is, forward this is what we want to do, this is what we'll put to the people at every local election, but in the meantime, we will work with anyone who's prepared to work with us to try and do something to ameliorate the difficulties that the Tories are going to create.
And it's not just you're absolutely right, but it's not just at the policy level, or it's at the ground level where we will win. And that's so you were just saying about your leaflets. I've already been out 3 times, maybe even 4 times since the election, and done my ward walks. Gone out, got casework, getting stuff fixed. That, I mean, if people need a bit of time, we've talked about people needing a bit of time, just needing to switch off, that's fine.
Yeah.
But actually, you have to pick yourself up off the floor. You have to dust yourself down, because if we want to change stuff, we can't wait for other people to do it. We have to be the instigators of that change.
And the interesting thing about going out within a few days of an election is, bloody hell, don't you have any rest?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the comments you get coming back, I didn't vote for you, but bloody hell, Richard.
Yeah. And listeners and viewers can go back and see our ones we've done on campaigning and canvassing and things like that. You don't have to win even an entire ward. Set yourself small victories. That's the key. What is the plan? Okay, let's take this street, let's take this polling district, let's take this ward, let's take this city, let's take the MP. You can do things in stages. If I suddenly think, right, I've got to somehow get 45,000 people in the whole of Preston, I want to try and get to as many of them as possible. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, you probably won't start.
Exactly. I say, I'll just stay in bed instead. But if I can say, actually, the Tories have 1 more ward in urban Preston, let's take that out.
Yeah. Well, we have set targets. We might slightly change that. Our situation is slightly different, of course, in Liverpool for next year, is that we have a city mayoral contest. And that is on a semi-proportional system. But we will be trying to win the mayoral seat by winning a number of council seats.
And use, if you have a bigger election or a by-election, what we did in the general election, I knew I wasn't going to win against the safest Tory seat in Lancashire. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I used our efforts to put it towards the seats that we were then going to hopefully win, or are definitely defending against next year.
Yeah.
And so again, it's all about being smart. You know, I could go out into some rural part of Wyre, which is part of the Wyre and Preston North seat I represented, where we haven't got a council, they haven't got elections for 1.5 years or 4 years till the next district election, and basically almost waste my time. Or I could go down, I could stay where I know we're going to target, and let's take out some Tories.
Yeah, so you might say, well, we spent a fair amount of money in Liverpool on getting some not very good results, so we held our deposit in 3 instead of 1 last time, so we modest improvement everywhere. But we weren't getting the leaflets out for the general election. We were getting the leaflets out for next May, unfortunately. We got the Royal Mail to deliver them for us. Marvellous.
And using the Royal Mail as a way, so obviously you might think, well, what's the point in doing the Royal Mail then? But that's an option. So if you're getting £20,000-30,000 worth of free postage, it's worth spending a couple of grand on a leaflet, because you'll never get that chance. You only get that chance once in a blue moon.
Yeah. So our key wards basically got delivered 3 times.
Yeah.
And they all had a hand-delivered focus from us. And as I say, you might say, well, you've got bugger all votes for spending all that money. I'll tell you, next May
it will come. It'll bear fruit.
It'll bear fruit.
That's right. So we did exactly the same. So we had the free post that we used, but then also had. I got some additional leaflets printed for our target areas and some extra ones as well, because if I had a volunteer come in an area, Poulton was, where we have no strength reserve, but she wanted to deliver, she was brand new, deliver just in her patch, and I went, absolutely.
I'll find you 500 leaflets.
I had something to give her, so she felt part of the campaign, and that's really important. We've talked again in previous podcasts about how to make members and new people welcome. Giving them something to do is key, so they feel part of this team that's working towards a common goal.
So we've already invited every member to a meeting to discuss the general election. We've already told them the date of venue and time of our thank you party. So they've already had 2 communications from us. We're now going to leave them alone till the new year, but I'd be interested to see how many people come to our discussions, particularly as it's before Christmas, so there won't be a huge number. But a lot of people have emailed me and said, I can't come, but could you think about?
Yeah.
So it's that involvement.
And very important, we'll stress this again and again, the sooner you start things campaigning-wise, the better.
Yeah.
You know, that bears fruit, whether it's a general election, a local election, whatever. If you're waiting until April before you start canvassing, you are probably going to fail.
Yeah, and in fact we've already discussed, as you know, Erica is the chair of our party here, so we are going to focus very, very heavily on public campaigning up till May.
Yeah.
To get as many people elected as possible and as many votes. Then we don't have an election for 2 years here. There won't be a general election.
No.
And there'll be a hell of a lot of people defect if
well,
there was.
that means then...
Sorry, I apologise for that if there is one.
So you're around to help me with my county election then in 2021. So there you
We might be persuaded.
Yeah.
But so what we've done is to say there's a year in which we don't have to be intensive public campaigners. We know that we don't have enough women prepared to be candidates. We know that our ethnic diversity in Liverpool is poor. So we're going to have a year in which we will carry on campaigning, because that's what we do, but we're going to have time to look at the engine, as it were.
And it's a weird mix up, because I have elections every year. So I have my city elections in thirds. And then the off year, I have my county.
This is only the 3rd May, or next year, the year after will be, since I arrived in Liverpool in 1974, when there hasn't been an election of one sort or another.
But there's good and bad things to both. So in one way, you can think, well, you can have a break, start doing your kind of the behind the scenes, getting candidates.
We're not having a break. We're doing different things.
But a break from your frontline apps, kind of. But from the other side of it, from our point of view, is we've always got the next election to try and make progress. And sometimes it can feel, and it does feel at times like, oh my grief, you know, a couple of months and suddenly we're back in the election cycle again. But you've just got to keep going. That's
as we've discussed again, it's not difficult to do. I mean, the weather outside is claggy today, but when I was delivering the other day, it was beautiful weather. People were nattering, hey Richard, I'm sorry you lost. Some people thought I'd lost my seat as an MP, which shows how little a lot of people do understand the system. What could be more pleasant? Going out, chatting to nice people, getting a bit of exercise, and it was nice and sunny.
Yeah, I like that. And just do little improvements. And again, I put this online to some of our campaigner groups that now that I walk the dog, instead of just going all the time to my local park, which is a lovely local park, actually I'll walk him round some of our target areas, see if I can spot little things. So spending an hour going round target and defence wards, saying, actually, there's a pothole there, actually that street light's out, actually that, or whatever, and just grounding yourself in the areas, and that takes no effort whatsoever to do that extra 1%.
Yeah, because you're going out for the walk anyway.
But it's about putting together these little 1% that will then make up to a huge difference later.
One of the things I like doing, but I know it also pays off, is actually going for a stroll on Christmas Day. So Erica and I, we don't see our kids on Christmas Day, we see them over Christmas, so it's just us. So she wants me out of the house before we go and have lunch on her allotment. And we... I go for a walk, talk to the kids on their bikes, see the mums and dads out, trying to make sure that there aren't too many bruises when people fall off. And it's a very civilised way to do it. And I need to go out for a walk, otherwise I just on the couch. Why don't I do it with a purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that, we will end this episode, which is all about what happens next, we think, or as much as anyone can kind of predict these things in the future. But what we are saying then is, Lib Dem, like I say, we talked about in the first episode, there are silver linings and hope and good things that have come from this election. Even though it can feel, we've gone down to 11, actually, if we work and work hard and work consistently, Lib Dems could do great things going forward. And in fact, anyone, whether you're elected or not, can do great things. I was saying this to a school hustings we were at, and I said, the best thing I ever did for a resident actually happened before I was even elected. All of us can play our part. You don't have to be council leaders or group leaders or opposition leaders or anything like that.
Yeah.
Go out there, do your bit, and if you need any help with anything, contact the ALDC. If you need to contact me and Richard, we're always free for advice. Just do
Indeed.
that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode. We will be back with our next one, which is going to be probably a little bit shorter, which will be about the leadership going forward and what we're doing. He's bringing out the reindeer again because it's still before Christmas. But he's going to... And on that, I don't know if we can afford to pay. Do we have to pay royalties on the music? I have no idea. But thank you so much for listening. Do rate us, do subscribe, do follow Richard on Twitter, do follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. We really appreciate you listening. I haven't seen what new figures we've got. I don't know if Portsmouth, Ohio was really connected to the general election thing.
They are on my blog.
Are they?
Since the election, about half my blog followers or people have been Americans.
There we go. But thank you so much. And the next episode we'll be talking about leadership. Where we go from here from the Lib Dems, what kind of leader we want. Do we want a new leader straight away? All these things we'll talk about next.
See you again.